blood sugar, percent body fat, and so on. Now, I make it very clear where you ought to be, but you see, the human body will tolerate not doing things perfectly a little bit. The problem with that is that most of us act like little children and say something like, well, he said I didn't have to be perfect, and then they run a million miles away from where you're supposed to be. The human body is supposed to breathe clean air. That means not smoke, and it also means avoid fine particulate matter. There was an article just published on that, how that increases the risk of cardiovascular disease, little fine particles that are in the air. You want to live as far away from smoke production, which includes interstate highways, as possible. Breathe clean air, drink clean water. What's the human body supposed to drink? Are we supposed to drink juice? Are we supposed to drink? There's an exception to every rule, by the way. How much alcohol are we supposed to drink? And you might say, well, it's obvious. You're not supposed to drink any alcohol. Well, the human body, like God, is a bit forgiving. And I say that if you want to drink alcohol, 4 drink equivalents a week is probably safe. Well, let's back up to breathe. How about tobacco? I say if you had 3 cigars a year, it probably wouldn't do you any harm as long as you had no other condition. If you have asthma or advanced lung disease, I'm not going to tell you to smoke 3 cigars. I'm not telling you to smoke anything anyhow. But what I'm saying is, if you are in a state of wellness, then the human body will probably tolerate 3 cigars a year, probably even 1 a month. But the same thing goes for alcohol. You could have 4 drinks, you could have 4 glasses of wine, you could have 4 shots of whiskey a week. A drink a day increases mortality. 1 drink a day increases mortality in men and women. It increases the risk of cancer and other things such as driving accidents, home violence, and so on and so on. So 4 drinks a week or less. And you know, I'm being very clear, very dictatorial, telling you, oh, it's got to be this way. Hey, pick and choose, free to choose. I had an interesting thought. I spoke to a mother the other day who said her children were being taught the 1619 Project from the New York Times, which is about slavery in the United States. If that were taught in a balanced fashion, I think it would be reasonable. But everybody, of which Bernie Sanders is the prime example, and Liz Warren was, is what are we against? This was the recent pattern of World War II. There was a hateful culture, and that's what I'm seeing too much of. Teach the 1619 Project, but don't create any guilt about it. That was history. There's nobody alive from the slaves who were brought to the United States. Slavery was abolished in 1805 in Connecticut. There were 300,000+ Northern soldiers who died to free the slaves. And again, all of this needs to be taught in a balanced fashion. Balanced fashion without hatred. Like I said, Bernie Sanders is too much against. He's always against everything. He projects a negative attitude. If the Democrats elect him, there is not a chance that he will win. America does not like anger. And that's why it didn't like Liz Warren. Liz Warren said the silliest thing. She said that it was because of sexism. She was a terrible candidate. She was mean, nasty, threatening. No wonder she was defeated. And as for the others, they were all eliminated because they simply weren't good candidates. There wasn't any racism, there wasn't any sexism. They just didn't project well. And that's what Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders does. Bernie Sanders projects very well. I give him credit for that. He's an excellent speaker. He half the time seems reasonable. On the other hand, I find Joe Biden entertaining. If you watch old videos of Joe, you will see how fluid he was in his speech and how consistent he was in his logic, which is clearly lacking at the present time. I'm not going to diagnose Alzheimer's because you don't do that remotely without having examined the patient. And what's more, I'm not really a specialist at that, but I must say there's a serious question in my mind. Anyhow, but he is a nice guy, and I believe he is an honorable guy. Do I think that he threatened Ukraine to a quid pro quo, that if you don't fire that prosecutor, that we're not going to give you $1 billion? It's on tape. That's called quid pro quo. I have to laugh at this. I tell you, life is a trip. Life is a trip. Don't throw it away. Now, going on about the cholesterol, breathe, drink, eat. What do we suppose eat? Our biology is 90+% vegan. We do not have a jaw that comes down like a pair of scissors the way all carnivore animals do. We do not have fangs and claws the way all carnivore animals do. We cannot safely digest rotten meat the way all carnivores can do. We live in a vegan body like chimpanzees and gorillas and horses and cows and goats, and like it or not. Now, what about, well, okay, let's be vegan. Let's eat Wonder Bread and Dunkin' Donuts. No, that doesn't make any sense at all. Eat unprocessed organic whole foods. And if you go to our website, you'll see a lot of direction about what you should be eating. Some of the information is a little bit old. I've recently updated it to say organic, unprocessed whole foods. That's like whole grains, brown rice, millet, quinoa, oat groats, not oatmeal. Oat groats, that's the way you say whole oats. Buckwheat groats like kasha. And again, these things should not be cooked with salt pork, ham hock, smoked turkey, wings, beef, etc. I do use some bone broths in the cooking. You have to be careful because the salt content, the sodium content can be high in those. It literally is a jungle out there. You have to know a lot. If you want to be a leader, you have to know a lot. And a leader in your own case is how to preserve your own health. We haven't gotten to COVID yet, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So we're still talking about the presentation on January 23rd at St. Francis Hospital. First principles, simplicity. Everything I have said is so simple. Now let's see over here. Oh yes, now here is a graph, and no, we're not going to blow this up at the end. You can see the slanted line. The slanted line goes down like that. And there's another slanted line below. And what that says is hardening of the arteries, heart attack, open heart surgery does not occur if you get the cholesterol low enough. What constitutes low enough? Well, when you take the good cholesterol number and you subtract you take the total cholesterol number and you subtract the good cholesterol, that's called non-HDL. And what is non-HDL? It's all the bad cholesterol. ATB is what I call it, but nobody else calls it that. So all of the bad cholesterol needs to be low enough that you don't make hardening of the arteries happen. Now, is it as simple as cholesterol? No. There's cholesterol, there's blood pressure, there's percent body fat, there's uric acid, there's triglycerides, there's A1C diabetes test. All of these things are written up in the literature, and I put them out as if they seem to be my opinion. They're not my opinion. This information is in the literature. And you may say, well, why don't other doctors know about this? Or why doesn't my doctor tell? Look, I'm not here to complain about anybody else. You're watching me. And I don't mean to sound too tough. If you don't like what I say, don't watch the program. But if you like what I say and you think I'm on the right track, then you are getting this information from me. So anyhow, for some reason that made me think of Chris Matthews, who just got fired, which I thought was interesting. So anyhow, ATB, non-HDL cholesterol, that number needs to be under 90. Under 90. And so when you subtract the good cholesterol, the HDL, from the total cholesterol, That number needs to be under 90. I do not need it refined and broken up into particle size and this and that. If you look at cholesterol and triglycerides, you have everything you need to know, because the triglycerides need to be under 100. Now, there's a new drug that came on the market that's very interesting. It's called Vascepa. It's icosapent. It's a fish oil derivative. And interestingly, by the way, fish oil was for the first time just found to be effective, as if you didn't know anyhow. So fish oil is effective, and this fish oil derivative, icosapent, is very effective in lowering triglycerides and lowering risk and improving particle size. So you have that non-HDL cholesterol of 90 or less. You have the triglycerides of 100 or less. You have a BUN, which is a kidney test, around 12 or so. You have a potassium around 4.1 to 4.5. You have a magnesium 2.1 plus. You have a percent body fat where you can look down at the tummy and see where the muscles meet the muscles. These are the ideals. Get as close to these as you can. And you may say, well, I had one woman who said to me, listen, I got a mommy's tummy, and meaning she's been pregnant and couldn't. I said she could do better. She was in her 60s, and she wasn't that bad, but she was like, let's say 5 feet 4 inches, 165 pounds. And I said, you know, you could be 135. At 5 feet 4 inches, that's still overweight, but every incremental decrease in percent body fat is going to make a huge difference. Breathe, drink, eat, exercise. I forgot to bring in my hand weights. 3, 5, and 10-pound one-hand neoprene-covered weights. They feel so good. All you have to do is stand in place and do the cross-country ski machine action, and then, of course, you can make a little figure of 8 or infinity sign while you're doing this, and then you can squat down, and you can think about putting one arm up and the other arm up, and then you can twist to the side and twist to the side. All the time you're kind of moving around. You do it for 1 minute. Yes, I just said 1 minute. 1 minute is a start. And you do what you can do, and over time it builds up. 10 pounds is going to be too heavy for a lot of people in the beginning. And maybe you'll be too heavy in the end. So what you do is you do the 3-pound to start, and if those feel too light, after you do it, you know, you keep doing this cross-country ski machine action, and you're marching back and forth like this, little tiny mincing steps, and you can do the same thing to the side, and like I said, you can squat down, and you can put it up like this, but anyhow, keep moving 1 minute, and then do something else. Go back to watching TV, sit down, go wash some dishes, whatever. By the way, finally they're getting this information that everything counts. This 10,000 step idea, that is the same thing. It's everything you do counts. You don't have to go to the gym. You can do what I just said. So that's breathe, drink, eat, exercise. And then the last one is unrealistic expectation. People have 10 minutes. Very good. So much of psychology, so much of anxiety and depression has to do with unrealistic expectations. I am so sorry for all the difficulties that everybody has in their life. But don't have unrealistic expectations. We're not privileged characters, and you may say, I'm not a privileged character, and I know that. Then take what comes to you and deal with it as best possible. I'm going to give you 2 words that I gave to my kids. I used to tell my kids, this is the most important thing I ever told you. And each week I'd have a new, this is the most important thing I ever told you. Here's one thing that continues to the present time besides non-HDL cholesterol of 90 or less, triglycerides of 100 or less, low percent body fat. Disarmingly charming. Just be as nice and pleasant as you can possibly be so that people like you. Not everybody's going to like you no matter what, but understand that concept of disarmingly charming. Obviously, that has to be married to competence. And competence is based on knowledge and learning, which you don't want to project yourself as holier than thou or smarter than you. You want to project it as just competence. So you need to be widely read, very knowledgeable, open-minded, and then present yourself as disarmingly charming. Now, I'd like to hear from the audience. Do you think I'm disarmingly charming? You don't have to write in or call me. I know it's not really my nature. I come across as sincere, and I come across as a little bit pushy. I say things so differently that people have a hard time believing it. And that's what keeps me sort of from being disarmingly charming. No, that's not true. It's just not my nature to be. I grew up with whatever things twisted and turned me and made me into the who I am. But I would encourage you to be sweet and charming. That is the winning combination. And then, of course, like I say, be very knowledgeable and competent as you go about what you do. Bad things will happen. Bad things happen to almost everybody. I know people who are disarmingly charming and they have various conditions and tragedies in their lives and so on and so on. And what I'm saying to you is this will happen no matter what. Like, for instance, this COVID thing. Unrealistic expectations. Who would have thought that we were going to get this brand new virus that is raging through the world and really creating havoc, destroying the stock market and people's values and so on and so on? This is actually pretty rough. People are going to have to quarantine themselves. As I thought about it as to who might be criticized, first of all, I think everybody sort of did sort of okay. But if I had to point one finger, it was the CDC, that guy Redfield, who did not get enough testing kits ready. Now, I must say, if I were in his position, I'm not sure I would have thought of that either. But that, to me, is the key weakness of the whole program on the coronavirus. And otherwise, I think the federal governments and the state governments are doing just excellent jobs. I think that, like I said, the United States government, I guess that includes Trump, the House, the Senate, and so on, has done a really very good job. Trump has been reassuring, a little bit overly reassuring, but don't throw stones. Don't find reasons to get angry, because that is what is the mistake that people are making now. That's the mistake of Bernie Sanders. Too much anger. Thank God things are as good as they are, and we will deal with the problems as they come along. Unrealistic expectation is to think that we are privileged characters and should not have the various disasters that we get in our life, and we get them, so don't deny that you shouldn't get your share of difficulties that have to be dealt with. And you may say, oh, I'm very aware of that. Well, then just with a little humility and a lack of hubris, do as best you can to persevere through them. And some people are going to get more favors than others. That's just the facts of life. 5 minutes. Okay, very good. I'm telling you, the help I'm getting today is terrific. All right, so COVID. Let's get back to COVID. Now, this idea is going to seem revolutionary, but I think that if you drink milk, any kind of milk intake, a drop a month, yogurt, cottage cheese, ice cream, cream, half and half, 1%, 2%, light and lively, you vastly increase your risk of getting COVID-19. Excuse me. Oh, I guess we're supposed to go like that. That arm doesn't, I can't do that. I am getting older. So the first thing I tell my patients is 100% no dairy products. I was surprised by Dr. Rodas when he presented with me on January 23rd at St. Francis Hospital, Department of Medicine Grand Rounds, that he came out very strong against dairy products, because I sort of thought I was the only one who came out strong against dairy products. Now, what about all the dairy farmers in the United States and Connecticut and the people who are raising organic grass-fed cows? I think each thing is a little bit better. What about the pasteurization process? I've always wondered what trouble that made. There isn't anything that doesn't have an upside and a downside. And there's a thought process that the pasteurization process completely activates the immune properties of milk. So anyhow, 100% no milk. That's what I would start doing now. I would take vitamin C, 500 milligrams, at least once a day, 5 days a week. I don't recommend any supplement 7 days a week, except vitamin D, because most people are so far deficient in vitamin D. And so what I'm saying is vitamin D, 5,000 units a day, unless you have some reason not to take 5,000 units a day. Everybody says that dose is too high. I'm telling you what I think I know. Take it or leave it. Invitation to consider. That's what this program is. Take it or leave it. I put the information out. You decide. Isn't that a Fox News? We present, you decide. Anyhow, I give you this information, and then you decide if you want to do it. You're free to choose. You are a consenting adult. I'm not ordering you to do this. I'm giving you what I think is the real deal. Vitamin C, 500 milligrams a day, 5 days a week. Vitamin D3, 5,000 units, 5 days a week. Now, if you have kidney problems or you have hyperparathyroidism, then there are conditions. If you check with your physician, they will almost certainly tell you that dose is too high, and I can't tell you it's safe, but that's what I give the vast majority of my patients, like 98% of patients. A 25 D3 level should be 50. So those are things that I think are important. The Preventive Medicine Center is going to have on its website a whole approach to 1 minute, a whole approach on how to deal with COVID-19, the coronavirus. So we'll get that up there at some point. H. Robert Silverstein, MD, for the Preventive Medicine Center in West Hartford Cable Access TV. Good day and God bless you all, and the best of luck to us all.